Welcome back, Cracked fans, to another edition of the Cracked Interviews podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. On today's show, we are thrilled to be joined by 2016 Olympic gold medalist and the current number 90 in the WTA singles rankings, Monica Puig, to ask her what she's been doing during these quarantined months, to ask her how she's staying in shape, how she's getting her training in. When was the last time she went this long a stretch without competing in a tennis match? You know, she is someone who's been the highest ranked player throughout the juniors and obviously into her professional career as well. And so I wanted to ask her what she's doing to fill that competitive void in her life right now. Of course, we also talk about her being the star of this year's edition of Tennis Channel's My Tennis Life YouTube series. So it's a really fun conversation, and a bonus to it all, we get to do this one on video as well. So if you are listening to this in podcast form, you want to see both mine and Monica's smiling face, be sure to head over to our YouTube channel if you are watching this now on YouTube. Hello, how are you today? And of course, thank you for checking that out. Now, I do want to apologize. This was the first interview we did on Zoom, and so the quality not quite where we usually like it to be. No green screen in the background. Of course, that was my fault, but super producer Daniel Westoff worked his magic, and we really enjoyed the final product. We know you all will as well, so be sure to enjoy today's video. Also, just so you know, at the end, again, the audio quality as well as the video quality just a little bit off. So, we're working those things out, and we promise to get better and better moving forward. But again, we are really excited to share this interview we did with Monica Puig with all of you. So with that, we hope you enjoy my conversation with the one and only Monica Puig. Joining us now on the Cracked Interviews podcast, you may know her for her career high of number 27 in the WTA singles ranking. Of course, she is a former gold medal singles winner for her native country of Puerto Rico. Also the star of this past season of Tennis Channel's My Tennis HQ's Monica Puig. Monica, welcome to the Cracked Interviews podcast. How are you doing?
I am great, trying to brave out the quarantine like everybody else. How are you?
I'm doing well. I saw the quarantine My Tennis HQ. I feel like that's got to be a weirder piece of content that you've done.
Yeah, actually, a little bit of an inside look at what I was working on with Tennis Channel this week. Decided to do like a little My Tennis Life Cribs edition. So kind of giving everybody an inside look at my quarantine HQ, which is this apartment, which I don't leave very often. But actually kind of like it because this is not like what I get to do during the season, which is travel all the time and never be home. So this is great.
Mm-hmm. And I know you started this year out with an elbow injury. Obviously, I'm curious how you're feeling. But to that point first, because for tennis players, I'm sure for you, you were a two-time Junior Slam finalist, and so you've been a prodigy your whole life. Is this the longest stretch of time you've gone? Since when was the last time you had this much time off? You were stuck at home for this long?
I have no idea. We were having a roundtable conference call with the WTA last night, just discussing what's going on. And I think our CEO said that it's only been 30 days that we've been doing this. And I kind of pause and think to myself, oh, really? It's only been 30 days? It feels so much longer than that. Because if it's only 30 days, yeah, I have spent a month at home before during preseason, but I guess this is the first time that it's probably been 30 days, actually being inside without going to restaurants, the movies, shopping, all these things that I would normally do. So maybe that's why it feels longer than 30 days. So is it the longest? I don't know, but it definitely feels like it.
Yeah, no, I've gotten so sick of my roommates. That's a lie. They're in the background. I'm not sick of you all, but just getting to do these podcasts, it's such a nice break just to get to talk to someone else. I think I was ordering food last night, and I was just chatting with the lady, and she was like, sorry for whatever. I was like, no, take your time. I haven't talked to people in months, so please.
I'm texting with my Instacart shopper, too. I'm like, oh, by the way, I need this. Is that okay? Is that okay? She's like, I don't have anything else to do. It's no problem. I can spend all day in Publix if I have to. I was like, okay then. Whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, I am curious, as I said there, for you to have an elbow injury at the start of this season to not get to play at all. I'm curious, how are you feeling? Are you a little bit antsy to get back out there? I'm sure we all are at this point.
Yeah, so the thing with the elbow injury is that since I did have a nerve issue, it takes a little bit longer to heal and to come back from the whole process. So it's been very up and down. I had my comeback kind of scheduled for Indian Wells, and then upon arriving in Palm Springs, I wasn't ready. And all of this came around, and I was just kind of like, it's not that bad for me to kind of like just continue to rehab, get better, and hopefully be ready to compete whenever it is that this is all over. But, I'm still dealing with the issues of the up and down, have some good weeks, some bad weeks, sometimes where, even playing 3 times a week makes me need to take an entire week off. But I think it's all really up in the air because nobody really knows how hard to train at the moment. So, you want to push your body to a normal extreme for you, but there is no normal extreme right now. You don't know whether to go like recovery day or like push really hard. It is literally like tying a knot with your brain every single day. You don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Again, getting back to the long layoff, I can't imagine you've had a 3-month training block since before you turned pro. And, that's a sentiment we've heard from so many players that we've gotten the chance to talk to is you don't know how hard to go right now. And again, I know in my tennis HQ, you gave a little sneak peek of what your quarantine activities look like. But, how have you been training? What have you been doing to stay in shape? Are you at a place where you have access to a court?
Well, I have really good friends that actually have a private court, and they let me use it, obviously social distancing as much as possible. But, tennis is a lower risk sport. The other person's on the other side and you're on the other side. So I can train from time to time. But obviously, like I said, there's, the good weeks and the bad weeks where, I've had to take maybe 2 weeks off of hitting just completely because I'm not there yet. I have my Peloton, which many people have seen me on this thing like all the time. And the good thing is that I made this investment in November. Before everything started, I was like, I want a Peloton. I really want it. It's great. And it has been great because I can get my cardio out anytime I want. Actually, after this podcast, I have to go on that bike. So, but we have like a love-hate relationship. I really love the thing. But there are some days where I don't really want to do it. I'm literally sitting on this chair having like a stare contest with the bike. And I'm like, I don't want to get on. I don't want to ride. And it's like, that internal voice that it's kind of like speaking to you. It's like, no, you need to ride today. I'm like, oh. So it's like, that little tug of war. At least I'm doing that. And yeah, I don't know if cleaning counts as exercise, but I have like the vacuum. I have my Lysol wipes. I'm just like going to town on this whole place. And trying to spend as much time in my pajamas as humanly possible.
Now, I've worn the same pair of sweatpants and hooded sweatshirt. I mean, they've made an appearance in the washer and dryer, but they then immediately come back on. And yeah, at this point, to what you were saying, I would watch an Olympic sport of just hand washing, just like the different techniques. What's the most efficient?
Curling right now. I mean, it's literally what we're all kind of training for. So, I mean, they better watch out. There's probably going to be more people getting involved in that sport because either that or speed walking, because maybe people are probably pacing around their houses or apartments or whatever, just trying to. I see more people walking now. Yeah. I mean, many more people walking. It's nice to see because a lot of people, and I kind of see this as an opportunity as people are starting to want to get outside. That whole thing of staying inside, while yes, people are playing video games and whatnot, they're getting outside, they're riding bikes, they're running, they're walking. It's great. Hopefully it stays and it sticks this time around because it's nice to see people getting active.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no doubt. One of my highlights of the day, I mean, we're on Zoom for people who are listening to this in podcast form, so you can see my magnificent jawline. All a product of I go for a run, most days of the week. And my favorite interaction is because I'll like go onto the road if I'm running on a sidewalk so as to not get too close to someone. And like it's an obligatory wave. It's just like, hey, thank you for doing that. I'm like, no. Thank you for, just being out there.
Kind of like one of these, or do you do like a this, or you just kind of like one of those like, hey?
So great question. And again, you missed a hand waving if you're listening to this in podcast form. But there was this one lady who was walking her young child, and I passed her 3 times in the same run. And that's not to say I'm fast. That's just to say that's where our geographies ended up matching up, where I just kept passing her. And after the 3rd time, because I think she noticed the 2nd and I did too, I just put the 3 fingers in the air and said, that's 3 times I've passed you. And I heard her chuckle.
And then the 4th, you just have to give her the nod and just be like, so.
Yeah, no, the 4th I was like, does this baby have a father? And if not, does it need one? But, that didn't go over so well. There was no 5th encounter after that one. I quickly scrambled out of there.
You're
but
just like, okay, I'm gone.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't know how I'm going to transition from that to my next question, so I guess I'll throw in another comment and say, my parents have a Peloton, and whenever I go visit them at home, I like to use it. The worst part is putting on the shoes. You're just locking in, and you're like, this is scary.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just kind of like, okay, it's the same experience as when you're going on a roller coaster. The adrenaline starts to build, and all of a sudden you hear the do, 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 and then you're just kind of locked in, and you're like, I can't move. But there's also, there's 2 types of people. There are the people who go on the roller coaster and leave it so that there's actually space in between their body and the bar. And there's the people like me who pretty much just and then you can't breathe, and it's just kind of super stuck to your body. And that's what it's like on the Peloton. You get in there, you can't move. So you better finish your ride and then get off, because then the whole process of getting out of the bike, I don't know how many bruises or cuts and scrapes you have from unclipping from the bike, but I've knocked myself in the shin a few times.
Well, it's just who needs cleats to ride a bike? It's we couldn't have thought of this just a little bit better. So yeah, it's a little bit scary. There's no denying that.
How satisfying is it when you do hear that initial click? You're just kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I like the leaderboard too. I mean, I'm a competitor. I imagine you are as well.
You like it?
Oh, I love it.
I detest the leaderboard. I mean, I try and push myself as hard as I can possibly go. But then all of a sudden you finish a ride and you're like, I killed that one. I crushed it. And all of a sudden you see 10,000 out of 2,000, 10,000 out of 20,000. You're like, yeah, serious? Really? But I mean, Peloton does have a lot of followers, but usually on the live rides, I'm not really that far up there, and that kind of makes me sad in a way. I'll get there eventually, but today's not that day.
No, for the person who's 10,212th and right behind you, they're like, is that Monica Puig? Really? And also,
I've given everybody my handle. It's Monica Ace 93. If you want to follow me on Peloton, I'm not going to challenge you on any rides. I'm riding pretty much for my own self-enjoyment, but, sometimes I see oh, your friend has taken this ride, and I'm going to look at it. I'm like, oh, okay, that ride doesn't really seem that bad. And then I start the ride, and I'm like, oh, my God.
Well, if you ever see the username LG Mother of 3, I'm pretty sure that's my mom. I actually don't think that's her username, but that's what I would refer to her as. And I will be on the lookout for that, because I feel like there's a chance. I mean, there's so many riders, right? That's half the fun of it. There's communities like that, and so that's very cool. Last tangent as well, just on roller coasters, because this thought is stuck in my head. My dad, no, it's a good thing. My dad, I could see. So again, we're on Zoom, so I see your face, and so that's why I know I got to tread lightly here with the jokes. Can't afford a flop.
No, I love it, and plus laughing is the best medicine out of everything. And you're talking about roller coasters, which is my thing.
Yeah, and so my dad, who has a voice that's at least 3 octaves lower than mine, it's just so funny because he goes on a roller coaster, and I always have to sit next to him because he'll just let out this high-pitched the entire roller coaster, and you're just like, where did this noise come from?
Really?
Yeah.
Dad?
Yeah, and it's the highlight. He'll come off after this little guilty smile, and I'm like, this is high quality content. So
if only they allowed, videotaping. I mean, I wonder how many GoPros and cell phones they'll lose, but that's like a moment that you just want recorded.
Yeah, there's a photo of, like the log rides where you have the big drop at the end and you get splashed. There's one of him like with his screaming face, and I know he does that, so I mocked his screaming face, and that's it's one of the few photos in my room I actually stay safe.
How many times do you try and go on a ride and actually you want to know where the camera is, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm making an ugly face, I need to change it just for the picture, and then it's just like,
yeah, I pose.
Come out terrible.
Yeah, no, there have been
Effort.
like the attempted Usain Bolt, and it's just like the wrong moment, and the person's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Sorry, I'll stop it. I can't help it." Yeah, no, that's absolutely a staple of everything. And again, going to work a transition here. Speaking of staples, getting to see all of the player-based content has been something that I think so many of us have enjoyed. And for you did a My Tennis HQ episode where you were at Indian Wells. And obviously that was the scene of where things for the coronavirus pandemic really first started to influence tennis. And I'm curious for you, again, I don't know how we got so serious all of a sudden, but what was it like in the moment to, hear all of the news that Indian Wells was canceled? Did you hear from the tournament directly? Is it players chatting about, amongst one another? How chaotic was that scene?
Okay, so let's circle back to...
Roller coasters. Okay, Palm Springs, sure.
So being in Palm Springs, I actually read a post about this. It's like the wife is listening to her husband on a conference call, and it's like, I married a let's circle back guy, but now I'm actually going to have to bring it here. Let's circle back to when we were in Palm Springs. I'm a let's circle back kind of girl. So
I like it.
We were over there, and I had just pulled out of the tournament because I wasn't ready to compete. So I had gone through all the paperwork and everything, and I was no longer entered in the tournament. And I was just there because I had a bunch of other commitments with sponsors at the time. So I remember it was one day I was eating dinner, and I was texting back and forth with Riley Opelka, and all of a sudden he says, I just heard the craziest thing. And I said, what? He said, I heard a rumor that Indian Wells is going to be canceled. I was like, no, get out of here. I know Riley. He is funny, great person and everything. But I'm like, you're pulling my leg here. You know that I'm super gullible, and this is just a joke. He's like, I don't know. That's just what I heard. I said, okay, bye. Get out of here. I don't want to, see ya. Yeah. So I was having dinner 2 hours later, and all of a sudden I start getting, my phone starts beeping. I'm like, who is texting me? Usually I'm the type of person that I can leave my phone for 5 hours, pick it up, and nobody texts me. I'm like that forever alone person. So I pick it up and I see all these updates just saying Indian Wells has been canceled because of a positive test in somebody tested positive for coronavirus in the Coachella Valley. And I was like, no, this is a joke. And again, I went on Twitter. We got an email from the CEO of the WTA. Everybody was posting about it. And I was like, oh, my God, what now? Because people still need to do things. We still, we don't know what's going on. And so they left the site open for 5 days or whatever until people could figure out what they were going to do. And it looked like a ghost town. People were training. It was like a mini preseason in a tournament in Indian Wells. And it was so weird. And the days, honestly, those days were stormy and gloomy. So it really had a very ominous feel to be in Palm Springs during that time. It was creepy.
Yeah, I can only imagine what that's like, especially because, Miami's right on the horizon. And at the time, they had said, no, we're going to try and play the event. A couple of days later, obviously, they ended up having to cancel. And I'm curious for you, again, is it the uncertainty above anything else that is really the most frustrating part of all of this?
Yeah, it's the most frustrating thing is just hearing I don't know all the time. So, you build up this idea in your head that, maybe things are going to get better. maybe this is going to happen, but we have to also realize we're in mid-April, and we have May, June, July, August, September, October. There's 6 months, but things don't really seem to be, while they're leveling out a little bit more, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know if there's going to be a second wave of the virus. We don't know what countries want to do in terms of their travel. We don't know if sponsors are going to be willing to support a tournament that doesn't have people coming to go and see, tournament revenue. There's a whole bunch of different things that, it's a huge question mark at the moment. And for a player, my biggest concern is health and safety of myself, my team, my family, and of everybody else. You don't want to go to a place that's all of a sudden, one person gets sick and you're at a really high risk of getting sick yourself because you can't really isolate, and then going to a place and maybe that place has the rule that you need to quarantine for 14 days or before or after. What do you do? It's just, you don't know. And not knowing, I think, is the biggest stress.
Mm-hmm. You said yesterday you guys had a WTA conference call. A couple of questions on that. A, is it just hundreds of person Zoom, and it's just like there's just little boxes across the screen, and you're like, Christy, go on mute, like we can all hear you in the background.
Christy's probably gonna be doing like her TikToks while everybody's talking. Honestly, I would love to see her followers go up because she has the funniest TikTok content out of
unbelievable.
All of the players, both ATP and WTA.
Mm-hmm.
She is so creative, and I love it.
Mm-hmm. No, it's just ridiculous. This has been the best part, and tennis players get a rough rap, from me included, because so many of us, I'll say, were homeschooled at a certain point, right? And so it's like you're going to probably be a little bit nerdy, but no, that's not the case. What we're learning is everyone's pretty cool and pretty funny and very creative. But again, Christy was the example I used because I know she's on the player council. But during those calls, is it communications between players and the council, between players and WTA officials? What has the line of communication looked like?
So it's not a Zoom meeting. It's it's similar to Zoom, but I think it's on Microsoft or something. Mm-hmm. And we're not actually looking at each other's faces. Like everybody calls in, cameras off, mute. So you're just listening. So it's they have 2 separate meetings. They have a meeting every Thursday from like 8 to 9 for people who are on the East Coast or wherever it is, not Europe. I think it's more for like Asia, so they can dial in. And then one on Friday from I think 10 to 11, where people from Europe can dial in, or the United States if they're up early. And in those meetings, we have our CEO, Steve Simon, all of the WTA board. We have people from communications. We have the player council and a bunch of other players just listening to updates. So every week we get new updates, whether it's on calendar, on updates on what the tournaments are saying, what we need to do. While it's all confidential, obviously we can't go too in depth, but it's just nice to continue to get updates. And obviously if we have any questions, we players have any questions, we submit the questions beforehand. And the board and the CEO, our CEO, gives us an opportunity to chime in after he says something or proposes something, and then we voice our opinions or our questions and get answers. But again, it's like the only thing I can say is that there's still just a ton of uncertainty, but it's good that at least they're keeping us in the loop and well informed, and it kind of eases the stress a little bit. Not really, but kind of.
Yeah, I mean, so I won't then pry and ask you what solutions people are thinking of, but I will say it sounds like overall you're happy with the level of communication you guys have received?
Yeah, I mean, it would be one thing if they just completely left us in the dark, but they're really trying to do a good job of keeping us in the loop, informed. I know at this time, there are some people who also are worried about compensation and what's going on, because I mean, this is the way that we make money. This is the way that we just live our lives, is working on the court, whether it's prize money or sponsorship deals. And we're not doing any of that. So it's obviously a concern. Essentially, we're like unemployed right now. So it's everybody has their concerns, and we want to know what is the best path to take, if there's any resources that we can use to kind of help us deal with this tough transition in time, and just kind of ease our minds as this all plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you, I know you played World Team Tennis last year. Not sure if you're signed up to play this year, but I know that is one avenue that's been explored. Maybe that's the first thing that comes back before even the tours, because the international nature of the tour, it's hard to have everyone traveling across the world and making sure people are getting tested if needed, all of those different things. But the idea of domestic leagues, and that's obviously what World Team Tennis is, does seem feasible in a world if the curve is flattened and things have gotten under control. Do you think that, World Team Tennis solutions like that might be the more immediate fix? Are you planning on playing World Team Tennis this year?
Well, since the Olympics are kind of out of the way, that definitely freed up the summer schedule a little bit, and I enjoyed playing World Team Tennis so much. My team was the Vegas Rollers, and I had such a great time because I was with Sam Corey, the Bryan brothers, Asia Muhammad. We had a great team. And a great time. I only
Vegas.
In Vegas, of all places.
Yeah.
I was only there for a weekend, but definitely looking to expand on that and play a little bit longer season. But yeah, again, domestically, it looks like sports are trying to make a comeback somehow. World Team Tennis would be a good thing. I don't know how it would happen, if it's going to be like all United States thing, if they want to do like an all players in France thing. I don't know, because obviously it's going to be really hard with international travel and what do you do. But I mean, just trying to get back out on the tennis court as soon as possible is always a nice thing. I mean, I definitely miss it. I haven't played since October. And here I am just trying to I just want to play. I just want to compete again. Like, I'll never complain about tennis ever again. Just give me back what I need. And it's kind of like that right now, really.
Mm-hmm. No, I can only imagine, again, how frustrated, how antsy, I think is the word to go with. You must be. And, you used the O word, so I will bring it up now, Olympics, because I'm sure you get asked about the Olympics in every interview you do. And
all the time.
Yeah, and so we don't have to relive the 2016 Olympics, although I'll point out, first gold medalist again in Puerto Rican history. Not too bad as far as things go. But for you to be the defending champion, and obviously for the Olympics to be postponed. Yeah, that I see your face reaction. It's a weird thing to say, defending Olympic champion, but for the Olympics to be pushed back, obviously for safety, health reasons, it makes a bunch of sense. But how much were you looking forward to this year's Olympics and defending that crown?
Whew, well, now that you bring that up, I was more concerned than excited because I don't know if I would have been ready. Like I said, I hadn't competed since October. I had to cancel Indian Wells. I didn't know what my elbow was going to bring, and now being in mid-April and still having some issues here and there, it probably wouldn't have happened, which would have probably been heartbreaking for me, because Tokyo was something that I really wanted to do, and there were talks of hopefully carrying the flag out in the opening ceremonies for Tokyo. So I just wanted the opportunity to compete and just be there representing Puerto Rico at the Olympics for a second time. So the fact that it got pushed back definitely eases my mind a little bit. People are like, oh, now you get to keep the title for another year. How do you feel about that? And honestly, the title is always going to be on my back. It's something that's slapped on my back, and it's never going to go away. And I love that, because I earned that. And it's something I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. I'm always going to be the 2016 Olympic gold medalist. And whether somebody else wins it or I win it again, I don't know what's going to happen. I will always have that experience, and I will always have that title to my name. So for that, I'm grateful. And just hopefully 2021 can be a successful Olympic Games, but health and safety is obviously the first and only priority at the moment.
What's it like to receive a police escort?
Oh my gosh. So that is overwhelming. I mean, just seeing people lined on the highways, cars, I'm going in one direction. There are parked cars on a busy highway. just to see me drive down with like 10 police officers in the front, 10 in the back. Oh my gosh. It was, honestly, it was a crazy experience. One that I barely remember because those days just went by in such a hurry because there was so much to do. It's like, Monica, come here. Monica, go there. Monica, up. Monica, down. This, that, this, the other. So when I finally had moments to myself, I was exhausted. And I would just, you know, the minute I got back to my hotel room or wherever I was, I closed the door. I was like, don't bother me. I need silence. It was just crazy. Crazy in a good way. I enjoyed every minute of it. But I never really knew how much of an impact this gold medal was going to bring on such a small island of 4 million people. And it was an explosion, literally. One that I enjoyed very, very much.
I'm not a doctor, but I would say 10% chance the elbow injury came from the presidential wave. You probably matched that.
I was practicing. I was like, do I do this one or do I do this one? But then, you know, I rewatched Princess Diaries because they gave you like you know, was it Julie Andrews kind of gave you like the thing. She's like, no, because this is going to get tiring. You need to like this and just, you know. So I had a tutorial just watching a Disney movie. So I guess, you know.
Yeah, no, the over-under was 0.5 Princess Diaries references. So I'm glad we hit the over for that. That's great. And yeah, no, well done. And, you know, for you, it's so clear how much the Puerto Rican community has meant to you, the larger Latinx community as well. And obviously 2 years ago when Hurricane Maria ravaged the island of Puerto Rico, you were very adamant about doing whatever you could to support the island. I think you raised somewhere around $200,000. What has the Puerto Rican tennis community and just the community at large meant to you, and how important was it for you to give back in that time of crisis?
Well, just seeing how Puerto Rico reacted when I won the gold medal, seeing how much they enjoyed the moment and how much support they gave me in that whole week. And not just that whole week, during my entire career, I have had some very loyal fans in Puerto Rico, and I thank them with all of my heart. It was time for me to repay the favor. And when Hurricane Maria hit, it was devastating, but we also have to remember that a week before or a few days before, Hurricane Irma almost had a direct hit on Puerto Rico and kind of wobbled the structure a little bit until it finally collapsed with Maria. So I was in Asia at the time, Wuhan to be exact. And then I had Wuhan, Beijing, and then I went to Luxembourg, and all this stuff was happening. I think I cried myself to sleep for a good long while because I felt like there was nothing I could do for so far, and people were getting me to do interviews, voiceovers for videos to kind of like reach out and have people donate. I couldn't get through an interview or I couldn't get through a voiceover without having to step outside the room to cry and then come back. It was a very emotional moment for me because Puerto Rico has always been my home, and I feel very strongly and passionately about where I come from. So in that moment, I knew that I needed to jump into action and just figure out a way to start moving somehow while I wasn't there. And then thankfully, Maria Sharapova also joined in on that action, and, you know, Sugarpova as well, and really just helped me raise the money to get people what they needed, which was food, water, insulin for the hospitals. We got them portable stoves so they can cook a hot meal, lanterns that were solar powered, which had USB connection because there was no electricity. So going to Puerto Rico was a completely different experience as well, because it's not the Puerto Rico that I knew at the end of 2016, which was so vibrant and bubbly and just full of life. It was ominous. It was dark. It was miserable in a way. And two completely different experiences that really opened my eyes and was just kind of like, wow.
You know, you've been so kind with your time. I do want to ask you a little bit about your tennis career because I feel like we haven't really dived into it yet. And, you know, I want to take us back to 2011 because, as I mentioned, you were a two-time Junior Slam finalist. They both came at the beginning of 2011. But what people may not know is mixed into all of that success, you, I think, won a $25K in Surprise that year. You qualified for Charleston for the first time, won a match at Indian Wells as a wild card. Go on on in April to win another 25K in Switzerland. What was that the first season of your career where things really started to take off? And what was working then? What does results like that do for someone so young early in their career?
So I had just turned pro. I think it was in the summer of 2010, and I was top ranked junior. I think I got to number 2 in the world in 2010, and then was still ranked in the top 5 in 2011. Made those first 2 junior finals, and after the French Open final, I was like, okay, I think it's time to transition over. This is what I want to do. I'm a professional, and I want to see where this goes. And having won those 25Ks kind of gave me confidence. It made me feel like, okay, I can kind of do this. But what a lot of people don't know is that sometimes, you see some girls that, just shoot straight to the top, and they're just incredible from the get-go, and they're very consistent, and they just, they find it early, and good for them. I wish I found it like that, but it kind of took me a while I was fluctuating all the time. It took me a while to kind of slowly start establishing myself. There were definitely periods of time where I didn't know if I could do this, or I didn't know if this was what I was meant to do. And then I was stuck always in that 120, flirting with, top 100, and then dropping down until I think it was 2013 where I lost in the final round of qualifying, got into as a lucky loser in Estoril, and made the quarterfinals in that tournament, and jumped from 101 to 80. I was like, finally, that's done. Like, oh my God. And from there on out, I just kind of relaxed, and then made it to, by that summer after Wimbledon, made it to 48 in the world. And that was, that was it. From there, I was like, okay, well, this is it. Won my first title in 2014 in Strasbourg, and that was pretty cool. And then all of a sudden the Olympics happens just out of nowhere. So for me, it was pretty much like everything has happened kind of out of the blue. Whether it was meant for me or not, it just happened at the time that it was supposed to. Everybody says, like, you can't force things. They just happen when they're meant to. And I think that was just kind of a case of that. It was just meant to be at the moment. And I don't know what tennis has in store for me for the future, but I'm dying to find out once we start playing.
I always judge a person's career by, do you have your own separate career statistics page on Wikipedia? And you do. So, you've got that going. I don't
like to look at those, because sometimes when I see like the win-loss ratio, I'm like, oh dear God.
No, it's better than you think. I won't tell you the number so that you don't get upset, but it's very good. And for you over that span, 2013 through now, you played over 20 plus events a year. And I'm curious for you, is scheduling, because that's, I feel like, on the medium to higher end. Is that something you do intentionally? You just like being out there playing as many events as possible?
Well, I think it really depends on a couple things. I think when you're younger, you definitely have more energy to do so. As you get older, your body changes. You definitely don't wake up getting ready to like run a marathon as you do when you're 18. So I remember when I first got on tour, I was like, oh my God, this is great. I play a 3-set match, I'm ready to play another one the next day. And people would tell me, just wait a few years. And now I get up out of bed every morning. I'm like, ugh. I'm like, everything hurts, and I feel like such a grandma. And then, I had my first surgery in December. So I'm like, okay, my body is definitely not what it used to be. So there's a lot more thought process that goes into planning tournaments now and what my schedule needs to look like. We definitely plan tournaments based off of where I want to peak. So if, I want to peak at a Grand Slam, what are the necessary tournaments that I need to play to kind of get myself back up here? So I start low and then I go high. Now it's not so much about how many tournaments can I play in a year. If I feel great, I'll play as many tournaments as I want. But I feel like it's starting to become a point where I need to be smart about what I want to play and where I want to peak and where I really want to do well at, because at the big tournaments, there's a lot of prize money, there's a lot of points, and that's where it matters the most. And I really, really want to try and win a major, before I call it quits on my career. I would like to win several, of course, but just like the Olympics, I have one. I would definitely like to have a Grand Slam to, add to the list. But, it's like putting the pieces into a puzzle.
Yeah, sure. And look, you talk about body changing. There's a reason I'm wearing a hat. It's because this upper left quadrant is just atrocious, not nearly ready to be seen.
I have wrinkles. Like, I get that. I have wrinkles on my forehead because I'm always doing this on the court. And you feel like I always have sometimes my coach is like, do you have a question? I'm like, no, this is just my normal face when I'm playing or whatever. He's like, you can relax your forehead.
Yeah, no, that struggle is real for sure. But you talk about, getting to know your body, getting to know what works for you heading into tournaments. Last serious question, I promise. But, again, you were having success by age 16 on tour. And, so clearly your level of play was there. But I'm curious, what's the bigger adjustment, physically adjusting to the grind week in, week out on tour, or is it the mental adjustment you have to make, all of the travel and just bouncing back from a loss as quickly as possible? What was more difficult for you to overcome thus far in your career?
Well, bouncing back from losses is something I still struggle with. It's tough. It's going to be tough, I think, all your career because it matters to you that much. The good thing about the junior tour versus the professional tour is that the junior tour is very similar to what we go through as pros. Just the best amount of tournaments for your ranking is much smaller. So I think it's like 6 or 8 best events. And for us, I think it's like 16 or something like that. So it's more. The traveling, like I said, it's very similar. We have similar places where we go to play or to prepare before our Grand Slams or big events. I think the most difficult thing about the transition is definitely mentally. It's knowing that in the professional level, people are playing for something. We're playing for money. We're playing for big endorsement deals. Like, we're playing to live now. This is how we're living. This is how we're surviving. If we win, we're okay. If we lose, there comes that worry and anxiety, like, how am I going to make it to another day, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's just nobody is going to give you anything for free. Whereas in the juniors, you get frustrated or whatever, and, somebody might tank a match and it doesn't really mean anything. But in the professional level, you don't see that because everybody is hungry to get paid. And I think on the physical level, the game is much faster. And I realized that when I got my first wild card, I think it was into Ponte Vedra, Florida, my first, I think, ever WTA event. I think it was like, it was Sony Ericsson something, the tour was called back then. And I just remember getting a wild card in 2010. And I actually won my first qualifying match and lost to Bethany Maddox-Sands in the second round of qualifying. But the game was so much faster. I struggled to stay in the rallies because it just took a lot out of me. I was breathless at times. The ball was coming much harder, much quicker. So I needed to do that. Thankfully, I was the type of player that I like to push the other player back. So naturally, I was always very aggressive, even that young. So that wasn't a problem for me. But, maintaining that intensity, that energy level very high, it was a struggle. And that's something that you start getting stronger, you start getting fitter, and you transition into. But that was the biggest 2 takeaways for me from the transition from one to the other.
Yeah, I mean, look, in that match against Bethany, 6-2 first set for Monica Puig. So, you were there. But yeah.
Yeah, I ended up tearing my ab muscle and I couldn't serve.
Oh, really?
So that's what happened. At the end of the first set, I had like a tear in my left ab, and then every time I was going to serve, it would hurt so much, so I couldn't really do that. But Bethany, actually, we had an Instagram live a few weeks ago, and we talked about that moment. It was just 16-year-old Monica playing against Bethany. I'm like thinking on the other, because Bethany's so feisty when she plays, and she's kind of like scary to match up against because she's like on it all the time and has this like confidence and this aura on the court that you're just kind of like, just like, she's intense and she's a fighter, and I admire her so much for what she does on and off the court. She's such a champion in the way that she's bounced back from injuries. She's a huge role model, and being able to play against her, and having those memories from when I was 16 years old to playing her I think I played her 2 years ago in Auckland, or last year in Auckland. You know, we've remained close during this whole time. You know, she's taken me under her wing before when I was coming up on tour and kind of helped me navigate what this life was all about. And I'm grateful for that.
I keep waiting for you to play Ellen Jabeur for a second time in the Pro Tour. I feel like that's a junior rivalry that could translate.
Like every time we play in a practice set or something, she's always slicing and dicing and drop shotting and this and that. And there are times where I, like, you know, even if I win the point, I'm just like, I look at her across and then she's like laughing at me. I'm like, seriously, are you never going to let that go? She's like, nope, because I know you hate it so much. I'm like, I was like, it's not that I hate it. I just hate the fact that I can't do it. Like, she hits these drop shots that go that way. You know, she hits these slices that just rip through the court, and you're like, okay, well, fine. I mean, you do you, but I wish I could do that.
Yeah, no, without question. And all right, I lied. I'm going to throw in another serious one because you talked about the nicks and bruises that you must have. How frequently are you playing on tour, you know, just banged up?
There's a good chance that during every tournament you have something going on. So that's why people see us with our leg taped or our arm or like just some really fancy tape jobs all over, because it's very, very tough to feel 100% at every single event. There have been some times where, you know, I have walked onto the court and I'm sick as a dog and I need to go out there, and I've won matches, you know, being sick. I have, you know, played with a hip tear and I have won a match, but unfortunately couldn't play the next one. For me, I never like to pull out from a tournament. I never like to retire from a match. If I do so, it's probably something serious. I remember in 2018 U.S. Open, or before the U.S. Open, New Haven. I had a really, really good tennis event there, qualifying and making it to the semifinals, and I had to pull out against Carlos Suarez Navarro because I had an ab issue as well. And I was in tears because I was like, I don't like that. I don't like it for the fans. You know, they come to watch you play and you just have to retire. And I honestly, you know, sometimes feel a little bit sad if I have to pull out from an event like Indian Wells. I felt like, you know, I thought I was ready, but I was not. And I'm still not physically 100% on where I need to be. But yeah, the reality is, and also as you get older, you're most likely going to be hurting, you know, 5 out of 7 days of the week.
Yeah, that's the joys of getting older, right? For sure.
And playing a high impact sport, like, well, not high impact, like not impact, but your joints definitely feel the impact.
Yeah, no, without question. All right, last 3 rapid fire series of questions for you, all quarantine edition. You know, we're all stuck at home, and so we're doing things we probably shouldn't. What is your worst quarantine purchase?
My worst quarantine purchase. For
me, it's the 2 bags of Reese's eggs because I ate them both, and I was like, that was a mistake.
It's everything that I start baking. Literally, like boxes of Sara Lee cake mix or Oreos or anything. And the thing is, I'm trying to make these desserts for other people. But what kind of a baker doesn't try their own, you know, masterpiece? And I have been guilty of doing more than just trying.
No, an out-of-business baker, that too.
Yeah,
because you got to try
like,
it first.
Definitely chowing down 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cookies at a time. So.
Yeah, the snackage rate for me is the thing that's it's just increased.
Yeah, because I mean, you it's so tough to identify. Am I bored really, or am I hungry? And usually, more of the time, you know, you want to kind of convince yourself that you're hungry, but you know, your mind knows that you're bored, but you're like, no, I'm just hungry.
Yeah,
let me. What do I have in the pantry today? Hi, Oreos, you're coming with me.
No, my roommate has a smart rule: no popcorn before 10:30. That's the rule we've implemented.
Oh, I love popcorn.
Yeah, okay, so that's the thing. All right, any new quarantine hobbies? Other than baking, I suppose. Yeah, that's a good double answer.
Baking.
Yeah.
I've been trying to read as much as I can. You know, I used to do that. I'm a huge nerd when it comes to books. I do not read many educational books, like on things that would teach you something, because sometimes I tend to lose interest, or I just want to read about something that is fun. For me, I like reading fiction books because it's like I can take my mind away from where I am right now and I transport myself to a completely other different place. So I've been reading a lot. My favorite author is Stephen King. Mm-hmm. His books are just like
exceptional,
mind-blowing, amazing.
Mm-hmm. No, all thrillers for sure, definitely. All right, last question for you, and then we'll let you go because again, you've been so kind with your time, and we really appreciate it.
I'm not doing anything, so it's okay.
Yeah, no. Again, these podcasts have been so enjoyable for me because it's like I get to escape for a second. It's like, and to get to do it on Zoom as well, see your smiling face. It's a win for me for sure. Yeah, much more so for me than you, I imagine. But
no, this has been so fun.
Yeah, but so last question for you. Again, you are one of the participants in My Tennis HQ this season. It's you and Jamie Murray, and we're part of the Tennis Channel podcast network. So always going to throw in a plug for our fellow Tennis Channel members. What is for you the weirdest part of doing that series, of having them with you day to day? Or maybe not day to day, but just behind the scenes with you all the time.
I think the weirdest thing is just always having to remember to videotape stuff. So, a lot of the time, like, for example, I have to send content all the time through an app so that the editing team can, like, put it all together, make it nice and stuff like that. And I do some pretty epic stuff. And then after I do it, I'm like, I didn't videotape that. Or like baking. I'm here in my kitchen. I'm like going to town on my KitchenAid mixer, like throwing in all this stuff and like tasting everything. I got my apron on, like there's sugar everywhere. There's flour all over the place. And I'm just kind of like, this looks like I'm a legitimate baker. Like I could be on the Food Network and have my own show. And I don't tape any of that stuff. And I'm like, this would have been so great for Tennis Channel. But then obviously, when I realized that, I'm like, hi, this is Monica Puig. Welcome to my tennis life. I'm here in my pajamas and I'm in bed. And I'm like, this is as sexy as it's going to get, you guys. Like, I'm not doing anything because I forgot to, like, videotape myself actually being a professional baker in my kitchen.
Yeah. No, so I'm looking forward to parts 6 and 7, the bake-off, where maybe...
Yeah, so a friend of mine actually gave me a heading of what I should be doing, and it's like having my own like little baking show. And I think I'm going to do it because I tend to bake treats every other day, and some pretty awesome things that I've been baking lately. So you know what, I'm going to probably give it a try, and I think I'm going to expand my horizons and actually do some really crazy and epic stuff.
Yeah, I see the 2-episode arc. End of part 1, the timer goes off and you like take a nap and fall asleep, and it's a dramatic ending. Did she hear the buzzer? Is it going to burn? And just
why is there smoke in the kitchen, Monica?
Exactly. You can squeeze 3 or 4 episodes out of that content for sure.
I think I can.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing it very much. Well, Monica, again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. This has been an absolute blast. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we look forward to, first of all, anytime you want to come on and chat, you know where to find me.
Absolutely. Count me in for more.
Yeah, but thank you so much, and again, take care.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, bye.